Have you always wanted to use a paint spray but you're not quite sure where to start? Well, you came to the right place. In this video, I'll walk you through the basics step by step so that you can start using a paint sprayer today. Now for this demonstration, I'll be using the Max Spray M1 airless sprayer, which is a perfect beginner sprayer because it's very budget friendly and it comes with everything that you need to get started. Now when you open the box, you'll find the Max Spray M1 sprayer itself, a ball valve to connect to your garden hose for cleaning, 2 wrenches to tighten the hose, some cleaning tools, an extension for your sprayer to get those hard to reach places, the spray gun which comes with a interchangeable tip, and a 25-foot hose which is more than enough. Now if you need to troubleshoot your sprayer, that's what this quick start guide is for. It shows you what you can do if your sprayer is acting up or if you get some clogging, so we'll keep this for later. And another thing you should do is read this tag that's connected to your hose. It has some very important safety guides on it. Now before we start spraying, let's get familiar with the controls on this machine. Now this is your pressure control valve. You'll find this on the left side of your machine. This lets you control the pressure of the paint that's coming out. You can turn it all the way up for high pressure or all the way down for low pressure. Now if you look here, you'll find the clean/prime position. This is another setting on the pressure control valve, and we'll use this for priming the machine and flushing it out later when we're done. This yellow button is located underneath the machine and it's called the push start valve. We'll have to press this twice in order to start the sprayer. Now on the right side of your machine, you'll find the spray and prime indicator. This just basically lets you know if you're in a spray position or a prime position. Now to connect the hose, we're going to remove this rubber piece from the threads and then we're going to use our wrench to tighten it. Now we'll take the other end of the hose and connect it to our spray gun. Now you notice that this gun swivels, so it's not going to let you tighten it all the way. In order to get it nice and snug, we'll have to use our wrenches to tighten these 2 bolts right here, the first and the second one. It's really simple though. You just have to apply pressure going the opposite direction, which means one is a push and the other one's a pull. Now the spray gun comes with a gun safety lock. So make sure whenever you're not using the sprayer, you flip this little switch right here and that'll prevent any accidental spraying mishaps. Alright, now that we're acquainted with our sprayer, let's put this bad boy to work. Remember this yellow button right here, the push start valve? That's the first thing I'm going to do. I'm going to push this 2 times. Now since it's our first time using the sprayer, we're going to have to flush the system. So we're going to turn the control valve to prime and clean. Next, we're just going to flip the switch to prime. Now we'll need 2 buckets. One of them has to be clean and filled with water, and the second one is just going to be a dump bucket. Now remember, we have our valve set to clean and prime and our switch set to prime. Now you can go ahead and turn on your sprayer and you'll see that the suction hose is going to start sucking up the water from the bucket. It's going to go through your machine and out of the purge hose. Now we're going to let that run for about 45 seconds just to make sure that we flush out the entire system. Now one thing I forgot to mention is sometimes the pressure from turning on the machine will cause the hose to jump around, so make sure it's nice and tight and sits snug in the bucket. And now that the system is flushed, we can go ahead and run some paint through it. Now personally, what I like to do is I like to remove this little suction cup right here. It tends to get in the way sometimes and you just remove this little clamp right here, but that's totally up to you. Now although the hose already has a filter, I like to add these mesh bags just to give it an extra layer of protection. And now I don't have to worry about any debris getting into my sprayer and me having to stop in the middle of a project just to clean my sprayer. Now I'm going to go ahead and take the suction tube and put it into my paint bucket, and then I'll take the purge tube and put it into my dump bucket. Now we're almost ready to fire it up. First thing we have to do though is remove the spray tip from our spray gun. Now although the sprayer is not powered on, I'm still going to make sure that the safety lock is on before I unscrew this just in case. Alright, now that everything is set up properly, we can go ahead and start the machine by flipping the power switch, which is located on the top of the machine. And again, always make sure that your hoses are secured before turning on the machine, and then you'll see the paint go through your suction hose into the machine and then come out of your purge hose just like it did before when we flushed the system. Now we're going to let this run for about 30 to 45 seconds, just until we're sure that it's paint and not water coming out the hose. Now once we see that the paint is flowing through the primer hose, we're going to turn this knob down all the way. Remember, this is the pressure control valve, so we're going to turn it down to low pressure. Next, we're going to flip the switch from the prime position to the spray position. Then we're going to go ahead and turn up the pressure just a little bit. We just need enough pressure to get the pump going and the paint flowing through the gun. Now we're going to gently squeeze the trigger into the dump bucket until the paint starts pumping through the machine and out of the gun. Now don't panic if you don't see any paint coming out your gun by now. All you have to do is turn up the control valve just a little bit more so that the pump starts kicking in. Just keep turning it slightly until you hear the machine do this. Then you can go ahead and gently squeeze the trigger into the dump bucket, and you're going to notice that it's a little bit watery at first. That's normal because that's the water that was left in the hose from when we flushed the system. Just give it a couple of seconds till it starts getting thicker, and then you can stick your finger in here and test it out, and yep, that's paint. Alright, so now we're ready to screw the tip back on. Make sure that the trigger's locked so you don't accidentally pull the trigger. Now the way this tip works is, if you look at this arrow right here, if you point it towards the back, that lets you unclog it. So if you're ever spraying and you happen to get some spits, turn it backwards, shoot it into the bucket, and that'll unclog your tip. And if you face it forwards towards the surface, that'll give you your spray fan. Now I'm going to turn up the valve some more, not all the way, just about half, and then I'm going to dial it in from here on out. Now you always want to test and fine tune your spray fan before you actually go paint something. Now spraying is not as hard as you might think. The key is distance. Hold your spray gun about 8 to 12 inches away from your surface. If you go too close, you'll get drips. And if you go too far away, the paint won't cover properly. Now the biggest tip for a smooth, even finish is to keep the sprayer moving at all times. Don't stop in one spot or you end up with a big blob of paint. You want to find the perfect speed and always keep your sprayer moving. Now if we look at this pattern here, you can see that the edges are very light, and then there's a finger width stripe going from the top to the bottom, which is called fingering. Now what this tells us is that either our tip is dirty or worn out, or the pressure is too low. But since this is a new tip, I know all I have to do is turn up the pressure some more and dial it in from there. Now another important thing is to overlap your strokes. Overlap each stroke by about 50% to make sure that you get the perfect coverage and avoid any gaps. And this is what your spray pattern should look like once it's dialed in. You see there's no light edges, everything looks nice and even compared to the first two. Now keep in mind, whenever you're spraying, you should always be wearing a respirator, and you should cover every area that you don't want paint to get on, because especially when you're painting indoors, there is overspray and it will get everywhere if you don't cover it. Now if you want to know where to get the sprayer, you can check out the description below. I'll leave a link to it there. I'll also leave a link to a video on how to clean the sprayer.